We have the National Air Intelligence Center has an alumni group, and we meet annually, and some of them still show up.
George Tolles was telling me about that. He sent me some of the things that he had.
George is just a real great guy, you know. He was in the very early business. He may well have been there before I arrived. I just remember him, and we haven't compared dates recently to a point where I remember which one of us might have been the first to get there. I was chief of the gun unit in the armament laboratory in the engineering division, and the tech intelligence people brought over the gun from the German jet Me-262 and wanted it evaluated, in that it was a very unique design and was extraordinarily lethal in World War II at the end of the war. And I conducted some tests and furnished them the results. And then I had a very good friend whose name is mentioned in your works, Miles E. Gohl.
Well, that's very interesting, because I have tried for years to find out anything I could on him.
He may well have actually started at McCook Field and then moved on to Wright Field, and he's a real pioneer there in armament. And then towards the end of the war, Colonel and later General Putt got a team together and took them to Europe to pick up the high-tech information that they could find in the way of material and documents, and visiting the various institutes as the United States and other Allied forces took over. And then when Gohl came back, rather than going to his old engineering assignment, he stayed with Tech Intelligence and became chief and deputy chief, as fortunes had it, back and forth, of the analysis division. Mm-hmm. And he, being a real old friend, when my job to come back as an engineer in the engineering armament, he and that was wiped out, the job was wiped out. Well, he was kind enough to hire me and immediately put me on the staff under his wing, you might say, with loading. So I was sharing the tech assistance office with loading.
Oh, so you knew Alfred very well then?
Very well.
Yeah, I know it. I know the loading family, and they have been trying to put together a family history dealing with specifically around Alfred. And Alfred, I guess, was kind of quiet with the family, wouldn't really tell too much of what was going on.
Well, none of us did. We were so sworn to secrecy in those days that we didn't share with our families. That was pretty common amongst the people involved in tech intelligence.
I would like to know a little about you, how you entered the service and where you went to school and things like that, if you could tell me.
University of Washington, 41, mechanical engineer, went into the military, got a graduation on Saturday, military active duty on Monday. And I went with the Coast Artillery on the West Coast in the June of 41. And an earlier time, and I don't remember when it really was, it might have been in the junior year or possibly senior year, that Wright Field sent a recruiting team around and gave us a story about Wright Field and asked for those that might be interested. And I guess I signed up as a matter of interest. And I say I guess because I honestly have no recollection. Well, when I was on duty with the Coast Artillery, a message came in from Wright Field and asked if I would consider a transfer to the Army Air Corps Engineering at Wright Field. My regimental commander was a reserve officer and engineer, and he said, "Son, you get nowhere at all in this Army business, artillery." He said, "You have an opportunity here to see some really great engineering in the Air Corps, prepare you for a later career." He said, "Take your year there rather than here in the artillery." So I followed his advice, and we accepted the offer, and then I was immediately transferred to the Air Corps right field, arriving in September, late September, I think the last few days of September of 1941. Went into the armament laboratory, and that's a story in itself, how I was chosen to go armament. But when they asked a certain group who'd ever been up in an airplane, and I was one of the few to raise my hand, they said, well, you go to bombing. So that's how I went to work bombing on the Norden bomb site. And I was supposedly the first non-rated, not having any wings, non-rated reserve officer who was cleared for the innards of the Norden bomb site.
Wow.
I was working on a directed project on the bomb site, but they would never let me get inside of it, look at the drawings or anything, you know. And I said, I can't do what you're asking me to do unless I can see what inside. Well, it finally came through. I got a clearance.
I don't think things have changed much, have they?
They sort of do that over and over again. One thing led to another. I ended up in the B-29 program, went with that on the remote turrets, remote fire control system. I checked out the first airplanes accepted by the Air Force at all of the B-29 factories, and that was at Omaha and Marietta, Georgia, and there's another one in there that doesn't come to mind at the moment. But after the B-29s, then I went into the gun unit, was chief of that, and got out of military, I believe, in May of 46. Came back in September in Tech Intelligence as a civilian.
Back in September of 47 or 46?
46.
Let me ask you a question about when you were out on the West Coast, and were you involved with the Battle of Los Angeles?
I was up in the Fort Lewis area. We were the only mobile anti-aircraft outfit on Fort Lewis, and we ran around and up to Seattle and so forth. But we never even went over to Bremerton. A friend of mine who was an engineer at Bremerton at the time said we had no defense at Bremerton. I said, oh, yeah, you did. We would have come up at the drop of a hat. We were fully mobile, and had all our, well, we didn't have all our guns, but we had quite a few and had our fire control and so forth.
A lot of historians have always wondered about that big battle that went on right over Los Angeles.
Well, I am somewhat familiar with it, in that one of my friends who was down there related out of my class. We were dispersed to a number of places. Portland and L.A. area, and some of them eventually went to the Philippines, and others of them went to Alaska. So I feel very fortunate that I didn't join those, because some of them we never heard of again. Others had some very, very tough times. But I remember one fantastic story out of San Francisco, where I was told that they had a barrage balloon broke loose from its holding and danced into town with its line down get onto the street, and then it would rise and fall again in the morning. So some guy ran out and tied the rope to the front of his car, and then went in to call the air defense people to tell them that he had one of their balloons. And they said, well, hold on to it, we'll come and get it. Well, in the meantime, the sun came up, and as you all know, the balloon expanded and lifted the car up, and then the car went dancing down the street. and one of my buddies was in on that, and he told me that story. I always enjoy it.
Funny.
But I flew B-17s into Seattle with the air defense balloons up, for, if you're acquainted with the old Seattle Boeing airfield down in the gully.
Yes.
Along the Duwamish. And we flew in between the balloons, and streaked in on the runways there. There was no Seattle International SeaTac as they know it now. And then later, as I mentioned, I first airplane out of Everett as well, the first B-29 out of, not the Everett plant, the Renton plant. First one out of the new Renton plant. That was quite an experience being on those acceptance teams.
Oh, speaking of B-29s, there was a man in the Air Force named Captain Edward Ruppelt.
Well, I know Ruppelt well, yeah.
You knew him well. And he was involved, I guess, in the B-29.
Yeah, he went to India and then stayed with him. And, you've got that in your history, on to Tinian and all. And,
right.
And I was slated to join the outfit in the Marianas as the wing Air Force armament officer or something like that. And my answer to my orders were canceled by the engineering people that said I was too vital to their program. They wouldn't let me go.
Well, one of the things that I've always been curious about Captain Ruppelt was that he was very highly decorated for a bombardier, but we have no information on what he did to gain so much commendations.
Well, usually the bombardier, and I was, as I mentioned, I was acquainted with bombing and installed bomb sites on a number of various new airplanes, and I did some test drops, but I never went into combat. But I had a lot of friends in combat, and you got your reward, your decorations on the achievement of the mission, as well as on the performance of the individual. Now, for instance, if the first bombing mission out of India was down into Indochina, it was not on to Japan. First missions went down to Rangoon. You're scraping my memory. That's pretty lame, after all these years. But first missions went to Rangoon. And they didn't do too well. And nonetheless, there was some engagements with Jap Zeros. There were airplanes shot down and so forth. So easily, some air medals would be awarded. Now, later, of course, when the missions ran out of Japan, and the low level in particular, where they really dropped tons of incendiaries at very low altitudes, and those people, again, were decorated because of their bombing achievement. Sometimes they would also have a engagement, like a head-on engagement with fighters that were dedicated to crashing the B-29's head-on a suicide. And the bombardier would take over the forward firepower, and he could shoot down an airplane or two. Mm-hmm. Consequently, you get decorated. I have no idea what Ruppelt citations were. I'm just telling you that's some of the ways.
He seemed to be a pretty quiet fellow.
What's quiet fellow?
Well, from what I understand, he didn't talk about himself much, but I guess he was an extremely dedicated worker.
When he was in the organization, I certainly encountered him in meetings and whatnot. He's on one side of the aisle, I'm on the other. I don't remember him as a fireball. We also had some rather, frankly, drunken parties. I don't remember him in them at all. And, the whole gang raises all kinds of cane, and people do things that they wouldn't do normally and whatnot, but I do not remember Ruppelt in any one of those joining in or making a scene or anything, Some of the younger guys just didn't choose to join in on that kind of thing. The old World War II types were more likely to be doing that. Unfortunate Christmas party that were in the empty cases and bottles were counted by the base police, and we were asked to leave out of building 11. And So analysis then went over to Area A alongside of the headquarters of the Technical Service Command or Materiel Command. And we went into a building there, I think it was something like 867T or something like that. But it was one of the logistics buildings, and we got the second floor of it. And that was before the whole thing moved to the huts fronted by 263 and the row of, they were actually a special kind of building for storage and handling issue of documents, books, like technical manuals.
Mm-hmm.
You remember TOs?
Sure.
PMs and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
That was the operation that was in there. The building was vacated. We got it. And it had like the head house of concrete block and then like 8 transverse wings, maybe 7, and a central hall going down the whole thing.
So these weren't necessarily Quonset huts then?
No, not at all. That's just a what do you call it, euphemism or expression. They were not Quonset. And, we always had a real big problem with our driving business. When we were over in that Area B party that I spoke of, one of the people that's in your list of personnel, he drove out as he drove out every evening after work, went through the gate, after the party that is, and he went through his usual gate. The only problem was the gate was closed. And he literally drove right through the steel mesh gate,
Let me guess, that was Colonel DeArmond.
It was John Zell.
Oh, John Zell.
Yeah.
Another mystery name. I've known the name, and I knew
that he was an aircraft guy.
Yeah, but I've never seen a photo of him or know anything about him at all.
A rugged-looking individual. So John's answer to that was, I always leave my car keys on the desk and everybody uses the car anytime they want. I didn't drive through any gate, Where's your proof who was driving it? He didn't deny it was his car. But he didn't get stuck with it. But it just all added to the color of our escapade, I remember another time one of the guys, of all things, he hit the guardhouse on the way out.
Oh, no.
And you being ex-military, that don't go over very good.
No, not the guardhouse proper, no.
Well, I was there from the time I reported in September 46 till I retired on June 30th, 1973. At the time I retired, I was GS-15. My military career ended at the end of the Korean recall in 53 when I went out on active duty, active reserve status. But they did some kind of a program at that time to reestablish your reserve standing, and I chose to resign because it had cost me considerably for my recall. I was a 14 when I was recalled and went back to my World War II grade of major. And General Garland wanted me to stay on, as he did some other people. He had not promised me, but he pretty much assured me that I could get assistant air attaché Paris, which was a real attractive idea. But I had a family then, girls in school, and my wife and I decided that we would go civilian from there on. Yeah. So, things could have been a lot different.
What was General Garland like?
Garland was just a fine general officer. He was a classic. The man had bearing and class, looked like a general, talked like a general. He was certainly a man whose intelligence was admired. I never heard a bad word about Garland.
He was close friends with Colonel Dunn, wasn't he?
That I could not tell you. I have no recollection of it.
Yeah, I have a really terrible Xerox photograph of him and Colonel Dunn together.
Oh, they very well might have been in the same picture at various times when we had get-togethers, and I'd have to look at I don't have any of the military stuff at the desk I'm at now. I have a biography of Dunn and of Garland, and it might indicate where there may or may not have been overlap. But Dunn went on to be a real big-time intelligence operator in Vietnam.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember talking to him at a reunion we had in Dayton down at the convention center. I could give you the year, and Dunn came to it. And I had been in Vietnam just before I got out, and consequently we shared some Vietnam business, and I was chairman of the Joint Services Battle Damage Assessment in Vietnam.
Oh, you went in and checked everything out then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I was
the program. I did not get. Well, I did get shot at. At least we understood our airplane was under fire at one time, but I did not, go out in the jungle or anything like that. I was the type that was in the hotel on the outside of the gate at Tonsanut and watched the helicopters come in nose to tail. I'll never forget that, I want you to know that when I heard you were coming in June, the last of June, Rosengarten, I talked to him about it, and I talked to Tolles about it, that I had been told by Rob Young that you were coming, and he said to make contact on your arrival through them, which I talked to them. I went down yesterday, I think it was the day before, and spent almost all day digging into a huge box of summaries of various time histories that were written and notes and whatnot. And so Red Honecker was a real character. He started at Wright Field in high school years, working as a high school student with part-time on the base, and used to fly and more or less maintain the galley on airplanes so equipped, and poured coffee and all that kind of stuff, made sandwiches.
Uh-huh. And
eventually he took a job full-time, and then he became Mr. UR, Unsatisfactory Reports from the Field, in maintenance. Became very, very well known. He was a very colorful figure. Red described himself as 5'17" and an eighth of a ton. I think you can convert that. But, he loved to tell people that when they asked him, "My God, Red, how big are you?" And they would say that. He would tell them that right away. He was a outstanding volleyball player, state championship team type of thing, And I played volleyball with him one time on a picnic, and he unwound that probably, 10-foot reach he had, with a full swing, spiked the ball and knocked the colonel flat on his butt, straight in the face. I said, "Red, if you had done that to me," I said, "my glasses would have been in the inside of my head." Yeah, he said, "This is no fun game." He says, "That's the way you play the game." But that was Red for you. He was a real character. Became mayor of Fairborn. Was a very significant figure in our document storage and retrieval, our machine language translation programs before he retired.
Oh, excellent career.
Yeah, it was.
What could you tell me about Colonel DeArmond? I talked with his son about a year and a half ago.
Want to know his nickname?
Sure.
I don't think he'd like it.
Well, Colonel DeArmond is no longer with us.
I know that. But, they say they're up there looking down and watching, listening here, and everything goes on.
Well, this may seem very strange to you, but as an historian, his son sent me all of his dad's private papers.
Fantastic.
From the service.
I've seen those.
And I made copies. I've got complete copies of everything that his son could find.
My gosh.
And he was a very meticulous man.
Uh-huh.
Everything that he filed was in chronological order.
Oh, my.
And I remember that day. It was in January. It was cold outside, and it was late at night. And I had just gotten the box from Bruce. And as I was going through those, the funniest feeling came over me. I could swear that Colonel DeArmond was standing next to me with his hand on my shoulder. I mean, it's really strange what historians go through.
Yeah.
And that.
He was one of the true pioneers rooted in the basic tech intelligence exploitation of World War II. And there are not many that were, that stayed with it. And we got a number of them when I came in fall of 46, I should say. There were some of them still left, but they were fast departing, and we never saw most of them again. A few of them did hang in there for a while. Colonel O'Mara was really also one of the pioneers. He apparently was sponsored by the Joint U.S.-British Intelligence Objectives Subcommittee, BIOS, JIOS, and so forth. I'd have to look. I'm again just grasping out of memory here, but he was a true pioneer in it. And John brought back a good segment of the so-called Peenemünde files, and we had those in T2, occupying something like 6 4-drawer cabinets. My experience with loading was that he was decidedly a different sort of person. He was very animated, very emotional, excitable about technical performance things conceptual things, and so things like flying saucers and so forth, and exotic propulsion systems, and were things that he would just get very excited about.
Well, he was really deep into the low aspect ratio stuff.
Yeah, right.
With the Hortons, and from what I understand,
Lippisch and the Horton brothers were some of his favorite German areas that he wanted to look into.
Yeah. From what I understand from the family, that Dr. Lippisch would come about every Sunday to have dinner with him.
My goodness.
At the home.
I never would have thought such a thing happened.
Oh, really?
Really.
Why's that?
Surprises me.
Oh, really? Could you tell me why?
Well, I didn't. I never heard of it.
Yeah, I guess he was close friends with Goddard, and even went to Roswell to consult with Goddard on.
Yeah, they show the picture with him out there, and the only thing that Al ever mentioned to me directly about rocketry was his project activity at Wright Field on the JATO bottles, jet assisted takeoff. He never went in, that I remember, that made any impression on me. Never went into working with Goddard or anything of the sort. I'm not saying he did or he didn't. All I'm saying is I don't remember anything of the sort.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you forgot to tell me what Colonel DeArmond's nickname was.
Well, it was amongst some, he was known as Moose.
Moose.
Yeah. He was a big guy,
Oh, yeah.
And
real big, red hair.
And sort of hulking, his general carriage and whatnot. It wasn't of my appointment, but I remember when it was mentioned Moose that we all knew who we were talking about.
Did the whole group there have nicknames for each other?
Well, not really. No, I didn't hear too many.
Yeah, I know that Mrs. McCoy told us that Colonel McCoy was known as Mr. Propeller.
Mm-hmm. He came out of the prop lab.
Right.
Now, I have some of the very early recognition of McCoy in I've got a publication identifying many of the people going to the engineering school in like 1939, and McCoy's picture's in there as one of the.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering if I could get a copy of that.
Oh, I think I'll send you one of those. Yeah.
Oh, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. The Honecker history, and as I say, I spent all day, and I can't lay my hands on what I remember that I got somewhere. But if I'm not at all a orderly person, like you said, DeArmond was, things filed in chronological order. My files are in various manila envelopes, and there's a lot of, whenever I start digging into them, I find things in one envelope that I should be in another one, and I found several things when I was working over the weekend that I straightened out a bit for and it did me some good to do it, but I'm still looking for the Honecker history. They get some of the darndest names in his command. Pontius has a little bit of historical recollection. And then they had, well, anyhow, he's followed by another one, phonetically anus. And, oh, yeah. Anus's predecessor was dumb.
Dumb?
Oh.
Now that's funny.
D-U-M-M.
You and Miles used to carpool together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, I knew Miles from like 1941. And when I came back, when he gave me the job in tech intelligence, my wife and I arrived back from the West Coast, and things were, try to find a house and a car and so forth were very, very difficult. And Miles found me a house within roughly 2 blocks of where he lived. And so we moved in there, and then he was a good friend of a Cadillac dealer, and so I got a car through him.
Well, I think all you guys must be big car people, because Alfred Loading always liked to drive the big cars, the big Buicks.
Well, right. Actually, the car I got at that time was a Buick Roadmaster. An individual in town, a businessman, had ordered his Cadillac, and of course it couldn't be delivered, but they managed to give him a new Buick Roadmaster to hold him over till his Cadillac arrived. When the Cadillac arrived, I got the Buick Roadmaster.
Uh-huh.
Boy, that was one of the biggest cars ever built, huge automobile.
Big dinosaur today.
Yeah, it sure was. and to this day, I still have dinosaurs. I just got rid of a Lincoln. I have a Cadillac now, and big sedan, the last of the big Fleetwood Bromes.
Oh, wow.
I use it to pull my boat.
Oh, you like to mess around on the lake.
I have a 24-foot cruiser down on Lake Cumberland in Kentucky.
Oh, beautiful country down there.
Oh, gorgeous. Yeah, I wished I was there today. You're lucky you caught me, because I've been trying to encourage my wife. We're having a break in the hot weather, and we're right now having real nice low 80s, low humidity, ideal weather.
Well, I live here in the desert Southwest, and we get very little rain, but for the last 2 days, that's all it's been wanting to do. So it's kind of, I'm not quite used to all this moisture.
Uh-huh.
Let's see, I got a few more names I'd like to ask you about.
Yeah.
How about Colonel Seashore?
Bud Seashore. Again, one of the true pioneers. Had been with McCoy in England, and so there was a tie in there. And he was considered to be a collection type, although at one point he was chief of the analysis division before Gold and Klingerman.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that.
No, I know nothing at all about it. That was before my time.
Well, actually,
I was chief of analysis when I arrived.
from what I understand, and from what I'm seeing on the organizational charts, Colonel McCoy held the position as chief of analysis real early in 1946.
Yeah.
After he returned.
Yeah, he and Seashore both did.
Yeah. And then Miles took over.
Yeah.
And that. But then, just very shortly thereafter, Colonel Klingerman
Yes.
stepped in.
Yes.
And that. Just from a historical point, was this a demotion for Miles, or?
No. What had happened was that Miles was a right-hand type of guy to Putt out of old engineering division. They were old friends out of engineering. And as I told you earlier, Miles went over to Germany with Putt on the Putt team.
Right.
All right, when he comes back, Putt, of course, was delighted that he chose to stay in tech intelligence rather than go back to his armament job, armament engineering. So Putt rewarded him with his chief of analysis.
Okay.
Okay. Putt was not too keen on those collection guys. Seashore, McCoy. McCoy, of course, was an engineer and had been in engineering school. May have actually been in with Putt. But Putt certainly was not too keen on Seashore. And he wasn't on Watson.
Well, why is that?
Don't know.
Oh.
But I do know that, and this is a fact that very few people know, that Watson was actually let out of tech intelligence and went to Washington in his first tour as chief of the collection division. And very few of Watson's histories pointed that out. And I stuck it in the time of Ashcroft, putting what was probably the best of the orderly histories, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed out to him what Watson's earlier years were, and I had some reference dates and whatnot. And I know when Watson left and went to Washington. And then, of course, we had him coming back as chief of Attic. And that's in the picture that I'm going to be sending you.
Okay.
But it does not at all recognize his earlier tour as chief of collection. You know, he came over from Lusty when they loaded the carrier and brought all the stuff to Seymour.
Uh-huh.
And just what went on in those days are not well documented, nobody much around to relate them.
But
did you, by any chance, from Bruce, did you get a history of Seymour?
No, I didn't.
Uh-huh.
No, I can call him and ask him.
Yeah, well, he gave me a copy of it. We say not too dynamic in the office. Neither was Klingerman. Neither of them really had their heart in tech intelligence. Klingerman was noted to be a typical fighter pilot. They had the constant twitch of looking over his shoulders. And, you know, that's one of the only things I can remember about him. Now, he has signed my travel orders, and I sat in and talked to him. He and Gold shared the office, and I was in that office quite a bit, being seen, you know, traveling with Gold on ride pool. We'd get together before we leave, you know, and I often had to sit and wait for him to finish up.
Was Colonel Hemstreet always involved in the big parties?
I can't remember that. Honestly, I'm not trying to avoid it.
No, I understand. Yeah.
No, I don't remember Andy partying.
I have another mystery name here that I don't know very much about, and that's Colonel Hoffman.
Oh, Gordon.
Gordon
Hoffman. Nickname Bubblehead.
Bubblehead.
Yeah. None of the electronics people had any respect for him whatsoever. And he was an alcoholic. Unfortunately, the poor man died down in Florida, literally in the gutter. Fell off the curb, you know. And I was at a party one night where he fell all the way way down the stairs, just terrible.
Oh.
And when he took over electronics and the people said, we're going to the AIEE meeting, he said, what's that? He had no background in electronics, technical background at all.
Did you ever meet a Dr. Charles Carroll?
No, that name I did not, don't remember it if I ever did encounter him, but I saw the name in the write-up, and Mike asked me about him, and I don't remember him at all.
How about Major Boggs?
Boggs is up in Washington. I have a very close friend that knows Boggs very well. I think I went to lunch with Boggs when I went up. I was on the anti-aircraft working group in FOYN, and I went up almost weekly bi-weekly or something like that. But I frequently went up to sit in on the anti-aircraft intelligence working group. We wrote the Air Force position for the national estimates and so forth. And at that time I met Boggs, as I did Patton, Steve Pisoni, and Rosenzweig.
Rosenzweig?
Yeah.
Never heard of the name.
The Patton, Pisoni, and Rosenzweig were the three, scientific advisors to the Deputy for Intelligence Headquarters, USAF.
Now that's interesting because I have searched for a long time on Dr. Pisoni, but it was just recently that I recovered some information on him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, some of these guys you knew, I don't know where they hide, but trying to find...
Rosenzweig was if I remember right, and he has been guest in my home and whatnot, I really liked him. We've spent a lot of time together. He was an OSS guy and had really a terrific deep root in intelligence. Dr. Patton was also a general in reserve, and he used to have his general's uniform hanging on his clothes rack alongside his desk, and at the drop of the hat would go on active duty for the day,
Oh, wow.
The Pentagon. And he finally let go of the intelligence business, got a promotion to Major General, and was head of the Air Force Reserve Program, if my memory serves me right. He might have been a deputy, to a regular, but I think he was the head of it. And we had
actually, believe it or not, a lot of this stuff is not out there.
Is that right?
Oh, really?
Find anyhow,
huh? Gee.
But, I know a guy a real good friend of mine, also from the Pentagon at that time, and he lives here. He unfortunately has had real bad luck with his health recently, heart and other problems, and he is just now starting his recovery. Mm-hmm. When he would choose to talk to you all, I'll sure make both your name and Mike's name and phone numbers available to him, and he can help you,
Well, I really appreciate that. And next time you talk to him, please send our best wishes.
We still go to dinner together. We just started going out again because his health has got to that point. But his memory is not what it was 6 months ago,
Uh-huh.
He took a terrible blow.
What was Dr. Pisoni like?
Oh, I don't remember him anywhere near as well as Rosenzweig and Patton.
Oh, okay.
And Pisoni, I just, met him in the office as a matter of courtesy.
Did you ever meet a Colonel James Olive?
No. Sorry, it didn't come over well.
Oh, that's okay.
But no, I never heard of a Colonel Olive to my recollection.
Okay. How about Lawrence Trutner?
Oh, real well.
Well, he's a mystery man to me. I don't know anything about him. Other than
he was a civilian engineer, and in that information I plowed through over the weekend, I found that Trutner had guided missile projects in early 46. He was in tech intelligence. And, that time we were tracking the whole host of German missiles surface and all. He was in the missile unit as a civilian engineer.
Did you guys ever figure out what the big ghost rockets were over in Scandinavia in 1946?
Not to my knowledge. I know nothing at all about it.
Yeah. How about a General John Vogt, or Voigt, V-O-G-T?
No.
You didn't know him?
V is in Victor?
Yes.
O-T-T.
No, O. G is in George.
Yeah.
T. Vogt.
No.
Didn't know him, huh?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask, I'm marking all this down, and I'm going to ask my friend, that I say, as soon as I feel he's up to it, I'll ask him what he knows about the Washington gang. Because he was in the Pentagon on more than one occasion, and he, before his illness, was a great historian. Oh, he could remember dates and people and events far better than I.
How about a Colonel George Garrett?
Garrett?
Yeah.
G-A-R-R-E-T-T?
That's correct.
Well, we had a civilian George Garrett, no colonel.
Huh. Well, this guy was in the Pentagon, but from what I understand, he used to come to Wright Field.
Uh-huh.
I just thought maybe you had run into him.
No, George Garrett was a contractor dealing with us in early times. Now, maybe he was a general, and I didn't know it. Yeah. And he was no longer on active duty. Seems like the one I knew was with one of the contractors that did a lot of work with intelligence, and to my knowledge, still doing it into the 90s, Mm-hmm. But yeah, that name's real familiar. Wait a minute. No, the guy I knew was Barrett.
Oh, Barrett?
Yeah,
okay.
This one's Garrett, G.
Yeah.
No, that's right. That was a slip there. I was thinking of George Barrett, and we got Garrett. Again, I'll ask my friend.
You knew Hoyt Vandenberg?
Oh, hey, I don't know generals like Vandenberg, but I did brief him. I was on an early T2 briefing team. We put together what was called the first technical threat briefing and took it up to the Pentagon, briefed the secretaries and whatnot, and also Vandenberg. And then Vandenberg sent us to New York City to brief a meeting of the American aircraft manufacturers, AAM, something like that. It was a formal organization of the top-level management owners of the major American aircraft factories.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting.
We went to New York to brief him. We had the briefing all on, the old press boards. I believe they were 3 feet by 4 feet. Standard briefing hardboard with the graphics all done in, watercolors and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And we salvoed it in the Chesapeake. We were in a T-11 and had the bag, a tailored bag that held, like 30 of these things, and that made quite a package. And the bomb bay door vibrated open, and we salvoed it. You can imagine the furor on that.
You knew Captain Gregory.
George, very good friend. In fact, George credits Marge, my wife Marge, me with having brought about his marriage to Donna.
Oh, a little matchmaking going on there, huh?
Well, we had that house that Gold gave us, arranged for us, and George and Donna had nowheres to go, and they used to come there and make dinner. Well, it was just a high comedy because Donna was a good country girl from, Iowa, Indiana, or somewhere, and George was a highly excitable Greek from New York, and it was just a comedy to watch them make dinner, She'd be cooking and George was sneaking in the spices. But yes, I do know him well, and George has deeded me his whole it in a box. I have it on a legal deed. And I'm just talking to the curator out at the Air Force Museum. He has referred me to the head of the archives, documents and something. And we're going to meet sometime after the 16th of this month.
Well,
and he wants to review this file. I would let you look at it, but I will not let you copy it. That's an agreement with George.
Yeah.
See, he was pursued, and I know you know more about this than I, by a whole flock of UFO people.
Oh, I know. They drive they drive everybody nuts.
He absolutely refused to cooperate. That's what he told me. He said, I do not want in any way my stuff to be used by private people. I feel that you would do better than I. He's older than I, and I think his memory is sliding a little faster than mine. And he said, I want to entrust this collection to you and dispose of it as you feel best in the interest of the Air Force or the National. But I'd sure let you look at it. Did you find anything on Albert Arnhem, A-R-N-H-Y-M?
No, I sure haven't.
He was McCoy's right-hand guy in the documents. Before McCoy went up to the front office as head of T2, he was head of documents, chief of documents division.
Do you remember his first name?
Arnhem?
Yes.
Albert.
Oh, Albert. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
No.
Oh.
I think,
I'm sitting here scribbling notes.
The German.
I'm scribbling notes as fast as I can.
While not all again, I use that word recklessly, while many U.S. Air Corps colonels were being downgraded to light colonel so they could stay in, McCoy arranged for Arnhem to get his Eagles, a German by birth who'd never been in American forces. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
So one day, he comes walking in, Arnhem does, with swagger stick and ribbons. And promptly, before the day was out, the ribbons disappeared. And I don't remember if he affected the swagger stick much longer either. But I never heard, Arnhem had a brilliant career then with exploiting the documents business, expanding on it. He was had a lot of natural promoter. And he put on a theatrical production here with girls in short skirts carrying a poster saying, I'm a document. I'm going over to get registered and stamped and whatnot. And then she would go in between different people and desks. And it got to be such a theatrical production that whole airplane loads of people were coming in from Washington to see it. That's the truth now. That's no hearsay.
And this was under Index and Rainbow and that?
No, that was Documents Division, the forerunner of what became the National Technical Library in Washington under Department of Commerce.
Oh, okay. Well, I got my wires crossed there.
Yeah, I've got the name, but I can't give it to you. I don't remember. So I never heard anything more of him after he went to Washington with the documents. The whole division moved up there. And we kept certain residual of it, the tech intelligence part that we wanted, that the analysts were interested in. And then one time I was in on a briefing of, going into brief LeMay. And in going into LeMay's office, there we went through an outer office with his PR boss, and there sits Colonel Arnhem, the same German. How about that?
Jeez.
What a history. And I have no idea what became of him.
What was General LeMay as crusty as the history books make him out to be?
I only had like 3 encounters with him. One, he came to my desk in the armament laboratory before going over to take over the B-29s. He wanted to know something about the remote fire control systems. And his brother-in-law, Captain Chandler, was in my group. Chandler arranged for LeMay to come to see me, unknown to me, and unknown to the laboratory or anybody else. That here, Major General LeMay comes in, and he's sitting there in my desk. And they went down and got me down in I was working in the airplane at the time, and if I remember what it was a Night Widow, Night Fighter. It was the Northrop twin-engine Night Fighter, and I was working on that remote control system. And the secretary came down and got me and said, General LeMay is sitting at your desk. Well, then I went to brief him in Omaha, and I had a half-hour briefing, which everybody had approved, and I was briefed by I was reviewed by his outer office staff. I walked in, he asked me one question, I was back out in 10 seconds. And then I had that other encounter with him in the Pentagon. But I only met LeMay 3 times.
How about Izzy Goodwin? From what I understand, and Mike and I, when we were in Dayton, just happened to run across a little blurb in the Wright Flyer on an Izzy Goodwin, who was supposed to be Colonel McCoy's secretary.
Oh, yeah.
Who don't know anything about.
Gal.
Yeah. They called her Izzy?
Pretty, very dark-haired. Oh, boy. And if I remember right, she was either going with or married the guy that whose quarters I took over when I lived in World War II in Dayton, And this is the circle goes round and round. Yeah, I remember her big. If it's the right one, a very striking, dark-haired girl. But I know somebody that know her, real well.
Know Lucy Floyd?
Yes, Lucy's a real good friend. She lives close by. She has just had hospital problems, either just going in or going to go in. She's had really serious medical problems.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Please give her our best wishes.
Okay. About Ivy Memolite, who was the secretary to the commanders of ATIC and T2 and FTD till her retirement. And she is a resident in Springfield.
No.
Well, like I said, I tried to do my best in getting in touch with you for your visit here, and I thought I could encourage you to stay a few extra days, and I would have put you in touch with a lot of good things. Now we have another guy around here, Bradford. He's an early one in equipment. Roy James in electronics. There are not many around that are in the roster in 1946.
Uh-huh.
Those are the only ones I can think of offhand.
Oh.
The rest have either gone or died or whatever,
Oh, golly.
Lost track of them. Have you been put in touch with a group that is working on the history of Wright Field?
Was this,
The engineering part,
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't know that.
Now, I was supposed to meet with them. I was supposed to meet him last month, and it's just I've got to call my contact and find the date and place they're meeting this month, and I will have my first encounter with them.
Well, we met with Dr. Narducci.
Yeah, he's the historian.
Yeah, and...
No, this is an informal luncheon group.
Oh.
But it's my understanding they've got one member there that might even go back to McCook.
Oh, goodness.
He's in his 90s.
Wow.
They say his memory is just razor sharp. Just remembers everything in great detail. He's in great physical health. And so they invited me to join them. I still have a lot of feelings about the lack of a really great, coherent story on tech intelligence through World War II. The Lusty team, the O'Mara, Peenemünde, JIOS teams, and Seashore, Pratt, Goal. Very, very few people at O'Mara, very few people know of these.
Yes, well,
Their involvement at all.
I was going to ask you, having read some of my rough draft, do I have most everything pretty correct?
Yes, certainly.
Oh, good.
Certainly.
Good.
I have no quarrel with anything. I just don't find a good tie with all these anecdotal things. I don't mean to put you down now. I'm just saying that I don't see a clear-cut tie between S2J2s in Europe at the end of the war and the people coming down from England and the people coming from right field. Did they meet? Did they hold hands? Who was subordinate to who?
Well,
and who stole from who?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, right. Well, like that, O'Mara told me personally, that file that he brought over was stolen. Was illegally taken out of hands and brought over. And that was so much the story. The whole story of the shipment of material on the board the carrier,
Uh-huh.
was the British actually wanted the carrier intercepted and brought back.
Well, now that's interesting.
Yeah. Dig around in that. See if you can find something more on that.
We did get a hold of the so-called official T2 history through June of '47, and I was interested in the rainbow football.
Well, I was the football guy for the analysis division. I had that program, and I'm very familiar with it. And I have the final report. Oh, and incidentally, over the weekend, I found one of the Blue Book reports, too.
Oh, which one is that?
I don't know.
Oh.
I have it. I mean, I know right where it is. I found it, and when I find things for a little while, I know where they are. I want it to go with the Gregory stuff, because I don't want it.
Yeah, I do promise I return things. I really do.
I have to look and see, is it duplicated in Gregory's file?
Okay.
But you can count on it. I do have an original Blue Book report. Just, I don't know, I threw it in the box, Oh, this one has some terribly interesting things in it. I was just sat down and read it, Well, it's 50 years since No, it isn't. It's over 30 years from the date of the report. So this is the first time I've looked at it again. And I was amazed at what's in there, all kinds of stuff. I'd be glad to tell you what it is on another call. If you know.
Oh, sure. I was going to ask you if it would be all right.
Chapters.
I was going to ask you if it would be all right if I would call you periodically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Time you can catch me.
Whenever
I have an answering machine. I'd be glad to talk to you,
Well, you got to be careful. I may show up with a whole bunch of cases of beer and want to go for a boat ride.
Oh, well, the boat's 200 miles away, but the beer would be real cool.
I make good.
I love to drink beer, and I like martinis. I'm an average guy. I like a hamburger, a hot dog. I love a porterhouse steak, and I'm somewhat of a gourmet. Got a gourmet appetite.
Well, you never know what Mike and I are going to do. We might show up with steaks in hand, and
I like to go out and eat, and my wife enjoys that sort of thing. We have a modest home, and we'd be very happy to have you drop in, and I'm not going to lug this stuff around. I told Mike I'm not in any way inclined to bring big boxes to a meeting in the Air Force Museum or anywhere else.
Oh, we understand.
I'd be glad to have you over, and we can sit and look at some of this stuff.
Oh, we would love that very, very much.
Some of it, I'd be surprised when I open the folder, because I don't dwell on this at all.
Yeah.
I have a very large library of, I'm a book collector of sorts. I have books on, like early in the intelligence structure in the Army, names and dates and places, and all kinds of stuff like that. I'll do that.
Okay.
I know Rosie real well, and I'll tell him that I was supposed to read it.
Well, I was sorry to have missed Colonel Rosengarten. We're planning.
Oh, incidentally, with the stuff I'll send you, I will include a Xerox copy of the article that was just featured in our daily newspaper on Rosie and his wife.
Oh, I would love that.
A real nice article.
Oh, I would
very
love
much
that.
admired in the community,
Oh, he's got a wonderful thing with
and
his education.
A nice picture of the two of them, and a very nice article on his achievement in the scholarship program.
Oh, that's his pride and joy.
Oh, sure is.
Yeah.
You have his book, Test Flying at Right Field?
No, I do not.
Oh, my goodness.
No.
Get a copy.
Okay.
Rosie sells them.
Let me look here. Yeah, I've got that on my list to get.
Yeah, Rosie sells them. See, and all the money goes to the scholarship fund. He doesn't keep a nickel.
Oh, okay. Well,
So feel generous about it.
I'll drop him a line with some bucks in it and ask for a copy.
Yeah. I'll put the price in the mailing. I'll get that off to you tomorrow.
Okay, I'd appreciate it.
And you might just, put a check in there and ask him to send you a copy. And it's a wonderful book. It ties in, strangely enough, with tech intelligence, because some of the test pilot stories that are in the book were testing the foreign airplanes for the T-2 gang. So you'll have like the test flight and crash of the ME-262 up at Xenia. And there's some others in there too, with test pilots like Tom Collins and Yeager and Gus Lundquist and so forth. Great book.
Mike was also, I'm looking through my notes here that Mike sent me on email, and that I guess you guys talked about gold medal and let's see, football and rainbow.
Not rainbow.
Not rainbow.
No.
Oh, well,
I don't. Rainbow doesn't ring a bell with me.
Okay. And gold meadow?
Gold eagle.
Gold eagle.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Eagle, like the bird.
Mike's probably looking at his notes and was probably scribbling like crazy.
Yeah.
What was gold eagle? Not to be nosy or anything, but...
I'd rather not discuss that on the phone.
Okay. Alrighty.
And, stork.
Oh, Project Stork.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some stork material.
And stork go together, and I'm not comfortable talking about it.
Okay.
Incidentally, the guy that monitored Eagle is still in town and in good shape. His name's John something or another.
Well, maybe we can talk about it a little bit when I come out.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
I hope you appreciate my attitude.
Oh, absolutely, sir. I don't have any qualms at all.
Talk about things I feel comfortable talking about. Certain things I took an oath, and I said I'm never going to talk about them, and I don't have any releases. I don't talk about them.
I agree with you 100%. I would think less of you if you did.
Yeah.
If you had the opposite attitude.
Okay, I'll give you some. But I won't give you details.
When you want something off the record, it stays off the record. There's many things about loading and things that we just do not talk about.
My wife remembers loading well when he used to come in the armament lab, presumably on that hydro bomb.
Oh, yes.
Because she was in also in the bombing unit. That's no strange thing. That's where we met. And she remembered Al Loading. As soon as I mentioned the name, she said, "Oh, I remember him." And her memory is just about the same as mine, And she has one classic recollection that he always said, "Boy, tough sledding today, no snow." And that ought to give you some kind of a clue right away.
Well, I'm going to be going up to see his oldest son, Don.
Well, you ask him if he knew about Dad's expression.
Oh, I sure will. As a matter of fact, his dad and him didn't get to spend very much time together, so everything that I come up with and that, he's just very grateful.
Well, you can tell him I honestly worked in the same office, technical assistant to the Chief Analysis Division. That's where Gold put me on detail.
Okay.
I was not on the organizational structure there, but I spent quite a few months sitting right with Al, saw him on a daily basis, and I have no recollection of him later years when he worked in the aircraft and, his final swan song out of Tech Intelligence. I don't remember that at all.
One thing that has always bothered Don and the family is have never been able to understand what happened. His dad became very despondent after he left T2, and they didn't know under what circumstances and things. And that's a, I suppose it's like any family, on death or whatever, and that I think what they're asking for is closure, to find out what happened and why Alfred became so despondent, and that. And I have tried to find an answer for them to help them so that his sons could come to closure on that.
I could only speculate on it, in my own mind. It would be pure surmise, hypotheses, what came about. I know that, he starts up as tech assistant to the chief of analysis division, and his career from there was just spiraling down.
Yeah, his record in that becomes very convoluted, and the family has never been able to quite come to be able to figure it out.
Well, I think it might well be said, and I would talk to Don directly if he so desired.
Oh, you would do that? Could I pass that message on to him then?
Well, I would open it up by telling him that I was worked with his father side by side, and take it from there. And if he has an open mind in regards to government organizational gamesmanship, who you know, when you know, and all that sort of thing. And
well, Don does have a background in government, and
does or does not?
Does.
Yeah,
and he's well into his 60s. He's a very prince of a guy. Just wonderful.
How old a guy is he?
I think he's just turned 66, I think.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I'm really trying to help him out.
Yeah.
Finding out as much as I can about his
no
dad.
idea he was that old.
Oh, yes. It's his oldest son. It's Alfred's oldest son. His name is Don. And Don's brother is just a few years younger, about 6 years younger, I believe. And his brother was in the Army, I believe. So, yes, I really appreciate the opportunity to pass on.
Just for old time's sake, I'd be glad to say that I knew Al. I certainly, at the time, thought of him as a friend. He certainly was not a mentor or a boss or anything of the sort. I just occupied space in his office.
Yeah. Well, that would mean a great deal to Don. It really would. That
part in his job description about his responsibility on aircraft production, underground facilities. As far as I know, that was a project I had in his office, and I don't remember his being involved in it at all.
Oh, really?
Now, whether that's to hurt his son's feelings or I would have to say that's the way I saw it and remembered.
Yeah, no, you would not.
Cole gave me the assignment. I related to the people. My wife will even vouch for it. I had some of them living with me, staying with me in my home as a guest. I set up the team that went overseas, worked with that.
Oh, Don is not that type.
But his job description that Mike gave me really surprised me.
Yeah. Well, Don, like I say, Don, just really wants to know. I think he's at a point where he really wants to know more about his dad because his dad was always so busy.
Well, I'm trying to write my dad's biography right now, so I have a feel for that.
And I've come up with a few things that I thought might really shake Don up, and he really appreciated it.
Oh, that's fine.
So he can take almost anything you tell him.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you'll have any worries
you
there.
Talk to me then.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you've run out of nickels, I would think.
Oh, I sure have. But, I want to thank you so very, very much.
Okay.
I've just had a wonderful time. And I look forward to calling you again soon.
Do that sometime when you save up some more money.
Okay, I sure will.
I enjoyed it. Now I'll have me a beer.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
God bless.
Pleasure was mine.
Bye-bye.
Bye.